Alright, what is going on everybody, WB Kyle here, and today I am bringing you guys a League of Legends build video, and today's build will be on Riven. So with Riven, I
Minions have
usually
spawned.
just like to play her straight AD. I don't usually get too tanky, but sometimes I do on the odd occasion, every now and then. Alright, so starting off, we will check out the runes. So I like to run full AD marks, full armor seals, magic resistant glyphs, and AD quintessences. And now for my masteries, I usually just like to go with a 21-9-0 with the standard AD in the offensive tree, standard armor and magic resist in the defensive tree, and obviously nothing in the utility. So yeah, to start off, right now I usually like to run a Doran's Blade and a health potion along with the warding totem. Usually I just get warding totem on Riven. There isn't really a need for the sweeping lens or scrying orb. Sweeping lens can be useful during the late game sometime if your team needs a bit more vision control. Anyway, yeah, so I used to like to run Cloth 5 a lot more, or even an Elixir and a couple potions, but in the current meta, the Doran's items, in my opinion, are just the best way to go. Usually if I go one-on-one against a Riven who starts Cloth 5 and I start Doran's Blade 1 potion, I'll be able to outlast her just because of the basic attacks restoring health and the extra health that I start off with along with the attack damage. Alright, so usually what I like to do with my first back, depending on if I'm laning against a heavy tank or just another offensive or AP champion. If I run against a tank, I usually like to start off with a brutalizer, so I'll either grab it first back, or if I don't have enough, I'll grab a couple longswords. The other option, I like to rush a Hydra sometimes, so I'll get a Vampiric Scepter or straight Tiamat, depending on how good of a start I've gotten. If I'm laning against an AP top, such as Kennen or Singed, sometimes I like to go with the Hex Drinker start, just for that little bit of magic resist as well as the attack damage. Plus it has a really good passive too. Yeah, so usually my early game consists of either a Tiamat, a Brutalizer, or a Hex Drinker, and then somewhere along there I usually like to grab boots. Now with Riven, you have 3 different type of boot possibilities. In my opinion, I can't really see you running anything different. Depending on if the other team has heavy AP or AD and you need a bit more tank, I usually like to run with the Mercury Treads or the Ninja Tabi. I'm going AFK.
My spirit is not lost.
Alright, sorry, back to the boots. And the third option is also Ionian Boots of Lucidity. Now, I'm pretty sure these are the recommended build when you first buy Riven, and I used to run them all the time, but in the current meta, without a tanky top laner, it's really hard for your team to get engages and stuff, so I usually like to run Riven a little hybrid tanky as of right now, so I usually get the Merc Treads or the Ninja Tabi. So, going into the mid game, I usually either like to finish my Hydra. Whether I start off with a Tiamat or not, at one point or another, you need a Hydra on Riven. It's just such a good item, helps with her wave clear, gives her some lifesteal, and a lot of attack damage, and that's what we're focusing on with Riven, is just attack damage. Now, near the mid game, this is kind of iffy item to get near the mid game, which is the Last Whisper, and I usually like to buy this item depending on how tanky the other team is, because once again, it gets that armor penetration. Well, not armor penetration, but it ignores armor, so basically armor penetration, so you will be able to deal a lot more damage to those tankier champions who are running a lot of armor to counter your Riven. So say you're laying against a Darius or a Garen, I usually like to get a Last Whisper ASAP. So now at this point you have your Hydra, maybe your Last Whisper, and then your boots, whichever of the 3 you decide to choose. I usually like to start rushing a Bloodthirster, so I'll grab the Vampiric Scepter and the BF Sword, and get the Bloodthirster. Now sometimes, depending on the game, I like to rush Bloodthirster before the Hydra, just to get those lifesteal stacks and attack damage stacks boosted really early on, but it's up to you whether you want more wave clear or more attack damage. It's up to you really. And then usually I like to finish off the Black Cleaver from my Brutalizer, just to get myself that extra tankiness, cooldown reduction, and a bit more attack damage. And then I usually like to finish off my build with a Guardian Angel, just so I can stay in the team fights as long as possible and put on as much damage as I can before I get knocked out, if I ever do. But yeah, that's usually my core with Riven: a Hydra, a Bloodthirster, a Last Whisper, Black Cleaver, one of the 3 boots, and a Guardian Angel. So yeah, that's just what I like to run. Let me know if you guys think you have any suggestions on what I can do to improve this build. But yeah, now onto the situational items. If I do get a Hex Drinker, which is on the rare chance I'm laning against a Kennen or a Singed or some other AP laner that's playing top, maybe like a Diana, I usually like to finish with the Maw of Malmortius. It's just a decent item overall, and it's good against AP champions. And also, if I am laning against an AP top laner, I usually will get Merc Treads just to get that early advantage and to win my lane and snowball from there. If my team is really needing a bit more tankiness, like if our jungler is, I don't know, stupid AFK.
So
I don't really
long
know an
I've
example of a
wandered.
super squishy jungler. But if we do have a super squishy jungler and support or something like that, I will usually get a Frozen Mallet just to get our team a bit more tankiness and sustain. Yeah, it's a pretty good item on Riven. It gets that AD and it also gives her a decent amount of health. Now this last situational item is kind of iffy. I kind of just threw it in here because I have seen some Riven players run a Blade of the Ruined King. I'm guessing they do it for the attack speed, because if they wanted damage and lifesteal they could go for the Hydra or the Bloodthirster much earlier. But yeah, the active is decent. I mean, you don't really need to slow your enemy on Riven because you have that Q and that E to close the gap really easily, so you don't need any more gap closers really. It is a decent item on Riven, but personally I prefer the Bloodthirster and Hydra. So yeah guys, that concludes
Learn from your
this
mistakes.
Riven build tutorial. I hope you guys enjoy. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments and help other people out maybe. If you have different builds, you can leave them in the comments, and you guys can feel free to check those out and see if they have any other ways of building Riven. But until next time guys, this has been WB Kyle. I will be back probably with a different champion, well, obviously with a different champion, but that's it.